A little after 4:30. So I have my pronouncement I have to make about the Design Review Board and what the state says I have to read. So bear with me for a moment. And we have two of our three members here on this hearing. So consistent with the governor's orders of extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow public to view and or listen to meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following, which is a link. If you do not have a camera or a microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-up: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 988-5001-4459, password 904823. Please only dial in in computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and visually recorded in compliance with American Disabilities Act. This location, this location free of charge as request if you are a person with disability and require information or material in an alternate format, or if you require other additional accommodations, please contact Town Disability Coordinator William Renault, Town Engineer 781-246-6308. As far advanced as possible, every effort will be made to grant your request. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangement accessible barriers. And I just got something coming up on my screen. I lost everybody. Everybody see me? Because I don't see you.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Can see you and hear you.
Interesting. Okay, there I am. I'm back. All right. So now I need to pull something up. So we're having a hearing on 64 Albion Street, Angelus Beauty Lounge. And then we're followed with 478 Main Street, Sweet Bay. And I don't see Liz here, so I don't know what's going to go on there. So here's the first one, which is 64. So this is the present condition. As far as I know, it's got a, can everybody see this?
Yeah, I'm looking at it on my computer.
No, but
I don't see it, but I do have the drawings that Edward had given me.
Yeah, it's not on screen, Jim.
okay, let me see if I can bring it up here. Save screen, participate. Participant. Now, is it there?
Yes.
Okay. So this is on Albion Street, about the center of the street to the south. It's basically got signage that's on the window presently. And the new client, I guess, and Jeff, do you know what the business of the new client is?
I'm going to assume it's a beauty lounge.
All right, so
What that means, I don't know, but
yeah, right. probably none of us do.
Oh my.
Can be. So they want to put a sign on the side of the building. And I have explained to Ed that it's not allowed. He understands that it's 15 square feet as proposed. The lettering is within the requirements of a wall sign, so is the size, but it's not allowed. And I've outlined here that to have a sign on a side of a business establishment, the business needs to be on the corner of two public streets. So the only thing at this point is a driveway and the public street. Also, the business needs to have two public entries, one on each street. So even those cases, say like Hart's Hardware, let's say, they'd have to have an entrance on both streets in order to have a sign on both sides. Beyond that, the business establishment do not have a display window. They may not have a wall sign. This has no display windows, another curse against it. And the business establishment has no sign band, then if the business establishment has no sign band, then the wall sign must conform to adjacent buildings, which means that all the buildings that are on the street have their sign bands on the front of the building, which is intended. And so this would have to match sign bands that are on the street around in the neighborhood, basically. Now, there's, in my mind, and others will tune up, I'm sure, there's absolutely no reason why a sign can't be in the panel that's in that area, basically, above the window. It's on there, or it could be on the window, but anyway, the
So
point being, I think, yeah,
can I just ask a quick question? Because this was dropped on me.
yeah,
very much last
I
minute.
understand someone left the rock for you to roll, yeah.
So are those 4 items, is that directly out of the bylaw?
Yes. And
Okay.
they are in the, I've got them back here, basically.
I'm not arguing, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no,
I believe you.
They are there. And
Can I ask a real quick question?
sure,
What is in the site to the left of the building when you're looking straight on at the front door? What's to the left of that? It looks like nothing.
the left of that is a residential house. It's even an apartment or something like that. It's at that location.
Is there a parking lot or something between the buildings?
Yeah, there's a driveway to a parking lot out back, I believe.
Okay.
Is what's there.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's quite a distance, and these are all these, and the next one to the right, the pink one that's in the background, that's
Yeah.
that's a remnant of what was on the street, I think, as far as housing. There was actually in this area, believe it or not, a Methodist church
Oh, yeah.
in the
Yeah,
steeple.
no, I've
the
seen old
steeple
pictures. Yeah.
basically- Yeah, the steeple basically, in a hurricane or something like that, came down, and so they decided, I guess, instead of rebuilding the steeple in the church, they demolished the whole thing. And
It
then
was-
the
The
Methodist,
steeple was kind of like the old St. Joe's too, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
like that big. It was-
yeah. So I think because those buildings are a little more modern in that area, like those two right there, that might have been where the church was.
Okay, makes sense.
So moving on to the other sign that's proposed. This is a freestanding sign 5 feet back from the sidewalk line, and is not allowed in the overlay district. It's 15 square feet, so it's about the size of a regular allowed wall sign. The lettering is 4.25. And the logo, I'm not sure what the size is, but it's at least 24 inches high. I don't know what the width of it is. And it's something we would encourage, I think, generally, but it would have to be considered all part of the sign. And the height of the sign is 5. Now, when I say that this sign is not allowed, the reason being is that under comments here, I have freestanding signs are not one of the allowed signs listed in table 1. So there's a commentary in there that says basically only signs that are listed in table 1 of the code are allowed. And this particular freestanding sign is not allowed anywhere in the overlay district, no matter what you had, and unless it's grandfathered. They are not allowed by right or special permit. So not even the zoning board basically has the right to grant a special permit for this. That's in the code. There is also, the next section basically, on every other type of sign that's allowed, there are strict parameters as to size, shape, location, and like. Because this is not one of the allowed signs, there are no parameters set, basically, because it's not allowed. So the board, I don't see the board, the zoning board, basically allowing this sort of sign at that location. Now, all of that, just here are the allowed signs. There's a street address sign, a wall sign, projecting bracket sign, window sign, temporary signs, building directory signs, and directional signs. That's it. Nothing in this list for a freestanding sign at all. So your client, Jeff, can go and ask, but I don't hold up much hope. And the process, as Ed knows, is that what happens is this board makes a determination whether to be supportive or not supportive, or even make recommendations if they want to, as to how you might get around or solve this particular problem. Now, I've told Ed in emails that they can have a projecting bracket sign here if they wanted to. Now, projecting bracket signs are 9 square feet. They're allowed by special permit. There have been cases where they've been greater than 9 square feet. So your client and you guys basically could look at an option of something larger than 9 square feet. Maybe the logo that they have used here becomes part of the hanging sign with the lettering across it or something like that. Maybe this sign basically, which is 15 square feet, goes into this area here. But I'm going to tell you that, well, I'm going to let other members speak for a moment before I speak my piece. Jeff and Bob, you want to say anything?
Well, I know that Ed was apprised of the issues before this meeting and said that he was sort of willing to take his chances. So it seems to me as though the intent is to get through this meeting, get denied, and then go to the ZBA and ask for what they want, rather than get any feedback from us and proceed with something that they might be able to have approved and get a permit and go ahead and do it in a more timely fashion. I think what's the ZBA is about a 90-day process, Jim?
90 days from the time that
So
you.
I think if you know, and it's not a case of misunderstanding, because Ed said that he completely understood the rules and that his interpretation was that the sign on the side was permitted and that he was going to, I guess, take his chances with the ground sign. So, you know, I don't know that I need to spend any more time on this. I would make a motion to deny it and let them go on to the ZBA, which seems to be the preference or the desire.
Yeah, and without Ed here, we can't have a real deep conversation, basically. And I would agree with you. Bob?
Yep, I don't have anything to add except, graphic comments. I think you're right. I think that's basically kind of where it goes. We could deny it and let them roll the dice with the ZBA. And then we'll see again, in a few months.
May I ask just a couple of questions real quick?
Yeah.
So that when he comes back and wants to kill me,
Yeah.
I at least have the answers for him.
I think you ought to go
so
skiing
I-
before he comes back.
I'm completely clear on the freestanding sign, no question. I'm completely clear on that. On the side wall sign, so and just correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not arguing again, I'm just trying to get my own clarification because I didn't jump in and dissect the bylaw. You know, we're dimensionally, I know we're okay. Its placement is the only issue there. And does the bylaw say that you can only have a second wall sign if you face a corner or a parking lot? Or does the placement of the primary singular sign, is that affected by?
I think Ed's comment, to paraphrase, was that the rules on the side of the building specifically refer to a secondary sign and they don't mention the primary, and that his takeaway was that that meant he could put the primary wherever he wanted, in this case on the side.
Okay,
His inference, I think, being that if it's not excluded, that it must be allowed, which is not the case in zoning bylaws. His intent is to say that the primary sign is the one that's 3 by 15, and that he would prefer to move it to the side of the building where a secondary sign is allowed. Under that logic, though, only a secondary sign is allowed. So is this sign the secondary sign or the primary sign? If it's the secondary, it's too big. If it's the primary sign and he wishes to advocate that it goes to the side of the building, primary, by definition under zoning, the only sign which is allowed on the side of a building is a secondary sign, which is allowed under certain conditions when you have a separate entrance and a window and a street and sidewalk. This faces a residential property. So he wants to put a sign that's too big to be a secondary sign in a location where it's not allowed, facing a residential property. So again, I'd be happy to help if the intent was to get our advice. I think he explicitly said he did not need our advice, that he took it a different way. And so I think we allow Ed to have his time at the ZBA. And if his client doesn't mind an extra 3 months' time, that's fine with us.
how often does the design review board meet?
We don't have a fixed schedule, but usually if it's within a week to week and a half, basically, if someone filing.
Okay, the reason I ask is I'm wondering if he can go back to these folks with the comments and come up with an alternative plan, which, you know, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. I don't know if they're going to want to go through the ZBA process for the front, for that ground sign, which actually they can't even get a special permit for that ground sign anyway. Is that correct?
That's right.
Just flat out, no, not
No.
allowed.
Yep.
So if this sign were relocated onto the front of the building, say over the entrance in line, I'm just throwing this out there, like the top of the sign in line with that black band, the top of that black band, this would be allowed, correct?
Well, it's over the display window, and he's correct in the fact that there is no sign band, but it would line up with other, because it's all signs on the street are pretty much over the display windows, and you've got to assume that first floor level is a display window, so that panel is above the display window.
Well, I don't think you necessarily can call it a display window if they're not displaying anything in it. It's got curtains in it.
Well, we don't know what they're gonna do. They could have, they could be, showing people getting haircuts or something. Who knows? It's,
Right, but I mean, I don't think you can just, you probably know as well as I do that display window, talking more like Main Street and the folks along Main Street who have those sort of display windows, like the suit shop and and those folks. I mean, those are clearly display windows. This is just a window. So I don't think you can define that as a display window, flat out, period, end of story.
well, basically this board could say it is.
Okay, All right.
really, because
it
it's part
Maybe
it's part of the
maybe
first
more to
clause.
your advantage.
I think we'd be in a
to
better
have it a
position to
display window,
discuss.
call
what-
it a display window.
I guess you can call it whatever you want to call it, I suppose. The area above the window, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's wood or what it is. If it's conducive to attaching anything to it. But basically, the long and short of it is, if you guys are going to approve a sign on this building, the only place you're going to approve it is that black panel above the window, correct?
No, I mean, someone could come up with a better design, basically, that might be narrower and longer, basically. But then you got to be careful because there are restrictions as to how long it can be in relationship to the width of the building. Because it can't be greater than, I think, 2/3 of the width of the building.
Jim, can I ask a question of you real
Sure.
quick? If they took that sign from the side of the building and made, I don't remember what the length is of the area, whatever like that, but if they mounted it on the gray area beside that spandrel above the window, as long as the signage complied with the area requirements of a sign,
You mean right in here?
yeah, that would be acceptable, right?
I don't know whether
Maybe,
I don't know, architecturally it would be the greatest thing, quite frankly. I mean, they're
Right.
doing black. Just look
Yeah.
at, if you look at this area, basically, they're looking for black. Maybe it's best there because that's when they put it on the lawn, that's what they use in the black as opposed to gray. But here
Yeah.
again, I'm gonna defer to Jeff for a moment, and we shouldn't, unless we're asked for options and ideas, and like, we
Yeah.
should just say, hey, Ed's already made his point. Whether his client's driving this bus, basically, and is telling Ed, basically, screw it, we're gonna go through this, or whether it's Ed basically figuring that, he's gonna throw the dice on this. I don't know. Without Ed here, we don't know.
yeah,
So-
no, I thought I was hearing Jeff ask or I thought Jeff was saying that the only place on that whole elevation that he's allowed to put a sign is in that rectangle above the window. And I
Well-
wanted to clarify whether that was the actual requirement or not.
No, if you take the statement that says that if there's no sign band, all
Yeah.
right, which there is none because it's a modern building, is it wants to match the location and height of others in the neighborhood. So it could be anywhere along there that makes sense.
Yep.
For,
That's what I thought.
for us as architects, this might make more sense than anything
Yeah.
along the ledge. On the other hand, if someone did something that formed some sort of format or did something, say, in the gray area that was long and narrow, who knows? I
You had
mean,
the
it's-
logo in the black and the words. I mean, I think we can come up with 5 different options, but that's not
Right.
our place right now. And
Yeah.
I would just like to start with agreeing that it should be on the front of the building per the code. And then after that, we're splitting hairs. But
right.
I would,
I agree. That's what I was getting at.
I
Thank you.
could certainly meet within the before 90 days. If the client said, well, to heck with without trying to go for the ZBA gamble. Anytime in the interim. I'm away next week though, but you don't really need me if you get a.
You're going skiing in Utah?
No,
He's
Question,
going to warmer climate.
Good.
So I have a question. If above the window, that black rectangle above
Yeah.
that, the window that's got the lettering in it right now. So if they were to put the logo in there, is that rectangular area is going to be interpreted as the sign area, correct? Which is going to put it over 15 square feet by I mean, I don't know what the measurements are, but I know it's more than 15 square feet.
Well, for a window, and again, you can argue as to display or not, for a window, it's 10% of the window area. All right.
But
he's saying above the
I'm
window.
sorry, I'm talking about the black area above that window,
Yeah, you could put something in there. Yeah.
right there. Oh, I can't. I'm pointing to my screen. Can't you see what I'm pointing at? So, yeah.
All right,
He's asking if the logo goes above the window in the dark space, which is the apparently larger than 3x5. The logo would, that background would be the 15-foot max requirement. So that was just the question. Does putting the logo there make that a 3x5 or bigger sign? But I don't know. I think we need to look at something that meets the spirit of the bylaws, and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, I could see the logo and some lettering basically there on that panel. And I mean, you really got to think about, and Jeff, this goes to you guys and Ed. It's really, you know, the reason for the putting the sign on the side is so that people see the building, you know, because they're driving one direction, and that I understand all that, but that's not what the code allows for, not in this circumstance. And projecting bracket sign could be on the right-hand side of this building with the logo or whatever, basically coming up with something that's fanciful that works here. And we have at times basically approved bigger signs and bigger things, but every time we make a recommendation for approval, it's got to go to the ZBA. We're not allowed to get outside our box, basically, but we can support going outside the box. It's just a 90-day trip there, basically, for your client and yourselves. And Ed has gone, I know that Ed has at least done one, maybe two, basically before the board. So he understands the process of presenting before the board.
Okay, all right. I think it's pretty clear. I will bring this back to Edward when he comes back and see, let him bring it back to the client and see what avenue they want to pursue.
I think we can do this if the board members agree with me, is before I write the denial, which seems like this is where we're going, the three of us, is I'll hold it. So it doesn't go to the, because I have to write a memo as the chair denying the submission. And then I usually will say, in this particular case, I would say, basically, we understand that the client is going to submit for a special permit with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So one, we deny, we can't deny a permit for signage. We can only recommend denial of a permit. It's up to the building department to not deny. We can't deny nor issue. So when we say we recommend denial, most likely the building department will say no. But at the same time, we'll say that you are all going to the zoning board to pursue a special permit. I can hold that, and we can come back to this in a week or so. If Ed wants to talk to his client and the like, come back and discuss this, or he can come back with his client with another idea or something.
Okay, yeah, if we could do that, that would be terrific.
I mean, it's entirely up to you guys to basically pursue it with the zoning board. And if that's what he wants to do, like Jeff says, fine. We don't hold, we'll just say, we don't agree with it. And here's the reason why.
Okay,
And-
yeah, that would be, I think that would be good if we could do that. Because I anticipate that they'll have some modifications and present them to you folks again.
Now, I'm on the zoning board, but I don't vote on these when they go through the zoning board. I only help in the participation, basically, of what's being presented and what the standing is on the part of this board, but I don't vote.
Okay, well, let me, if we can hold on, temporarily hold on writing the recommendation. I'll present this to Edward. He's back on Wednesday. So I'll present it to him then, and I'm sure he'll just reach out to you guys and let you know what direction they want to go in.
All right.
So, okay. Is there anything else I should tell him about?
No,
Besides,
no.
besides that the pink is too pink on the
No,
black?
No, I don't think so, unless you guys want to say something. I don't believe so.
Nope.
So Jeff has forwarded a motion on denial. Bob, how are you?
I would make, can we, I don't, at the same time, I don't want to delay anything. Let's say they come back, Ed comes back and then talks to the client, and the client says, we don't really want to mess with the ZBA. I'm going to be away next week, so can we vote to, one thing I think is the client could withdraw the application, sort of without prejudice. We don't make a vote up or down. Or we could say, this current application, we would make a motion to vote on it. And then maybe a second motion that says, obviously we want to give them time to think about this, right?
Yep.
So that they could, if they come back to us and say, we want to withdraw the application, or we want to revise and resubmit or something, that we just say, I just want it to be official so that you don't get a phone call and say, okay, well, I'll withdraw the denial letter behind the scenes. It's got to be open meeting and all that sort of stuff. So I just want to, is there a way we can construct something where we can get it all done and say, make a motion to withdraw, but accept, make a motion to deny, but accept the client's possible withdrawal of this thing with a resubmission within a week's time. Making any sense?
I'm gonna make you make the motion.
I think you just did.
Asking to work it out. But you've
Well,
been to a lot more of these meetings than I have.
I'm thinking that basically that as presented, it's denied, but if the client wants to come back and represent, because it's not, we're not like the zoning board, basically, where you can't come back to us, in a year or so.
Right. I just would like it to be, if they called you and said, hey, Jim, we would like to resubmit, and we don't have a meeting about that, then somebody down the road can get on your case about that's not the procedure. So I just want to avoid that. I'd like to, conversationally, I'd love to say to them, yeah, come back next couple of weeks, whatever it is. But I think we have to do it. I think we have to deny this application, but we can withhold the letter, the submission of the letter to the building department until such time we hear back from the client as to whether they'd like to revise and resubmit, or they really want to go onto the ZBA, right? Does that work?
Works for me.
I second that motion.
Okay. So we're voting to deny the current application or approve it. You'll write the letter, but you won't send it until you hear back from the client as to whether they want to resubmit within 7 days. Is that okay? 10 days? Whatever the client's convenience is.
I would say 10 days.
Yeah, make it 10 days. He gets back.
So Jeff, you're going away next week, right?
Yeah,
So-
but I think in the past is it 2 members, Jim, that?
Yeah, Bob and I can handle it.
Yeah, but that's also why I wanted to officially deny it, because if we didn't take a real vote and you said, no, we want to go to the ZBA, then, well, I guess Jim and Bob could still vote next week anyway without me, so.
I'm not sure anything will happen this week anyway, by the time he gets back.
Yeah.
And then has a meeting and there are revisions and they get to Jim. So if we could do 10 days, that would be terrific.
10 days, 2 weeks, whatever works for you. I just
You
want
know
to
what,
make it
then
90 days.
let's do 2 weeks.
All right,
If you
14
can
days.
hold, and they'll hopefully have their act together by then.
Okay, so I'll clean up my motion. I'll make the motion to deny this application, but withhold the submission of our recommendation letter for a period of 2 weeks until we hear back from the client as to whether they'd like to revise and resubmit their design. That work?
Yep. Aye. Bob's fine. I'm fine. Bob?
Yep,
you're-
I'm fine. Yep, that's
okay,
fine.
the way we'll handle it then. Okay,
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.
yeah, well,
Thank you. And I wish we were in a position where we could negotiate and come up with things on the fly and approve them. So
You know
we're
what?
kind of stuck in between, you know?
I think it's easier when it's black and white in the bylaw, to be honest with you. It's
Right.
just- I get it. I get it. So
Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
no problem. I hope you enjoy your vacation. Jim, side note, are you related to Jay McBain at all?
That's my son.
It is. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I know Jay.
How do you know him?
Let's see, I knew him when he worked at Pro Cycles, and I knew him when he worked at Dent Wizard, and I still know him now that he doesn't work at Dent Wizard, and so
No.
from mountain biking.
Oh, ha,
Yeah.
ha. Yeah, but he's gotten older now and he's gone battery operated.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I know. He was the first one of our group, and probably the one who needed it the least. But, I wasn't sure. To be honest with you, I thought you were maybe young to be his father. So, and that's not me just, trying to gain.
Already been denied.
That's why I waited till the end. All right,
Yeah.
guys, thanks. I'll let you get over to 478 Main.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All
Bye.
right, thanks.
All right, I don't see Liz here. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about this. I don't know whether we've had 2 meetings with her. The first one was back in March of last year. And then we had another one the week after. She had difficulty with the computer, so I don't know what's going on with her. But if the last meeting we had, it was a napkin meeting, basically, where she was diddling with a pencil, basically, on a napkin and trying to show us what she's doing. And she has gone out and now presented this, leaving these little decorations here, which are not part of the signage, but part of the building decoration, which I think looks good. But she's not given us a whole lot of information on the sign size or the detail, because she does not have, as I understand it in the recent conversation in the last hour or so, have any signage guide. And she's been out basically trying to get prices from different people, basically on signage. So she's told me that this much anyways, that the sign's 10 foot by 30 inches high by an inch and a half thickness, which comes out to 25 square feet. And the material is aluminum with some sort of molded frame. There's not enough detail information for us to deal with. And it looks like they've got applied acrylic letters basically to this, so there's no character to it at all. Now, my conversation today with her would have been that certainly the building should be granted something larger than 15 square feet. And like we did with Hart's Hardware, we basically went and utilized the future regulations as part of a special permit. So we used the guidelines for that future regulation on Hart's to come up with a way or an ask on Hart's part to and use the this future regulations as a special permit sizing system. And that Hart's is actually coming up before the board, before the zoning board, not this time, but the next time around. And so they've got sign on both sides of the building. The side, they got 2 projecting bracket signs, one on either side of the building, and the like. And so I'm looking at this and saying, wouldn't it be nice to have a second building to point to and say, this is what the future regulations will allow. And for future regulations here on this building, given the size, the sign would be about 19 3/3 or something like that square feet. So call it 20, basically. So it wouldn't be 25 as she is asking, but more like 20, basically, in this particular case. And what I would ask her to do, and since she doesn't have anybody giving her final prices or any sort of design, basically, except this image, is the letters be standoff and the trim around it be more outstanding, basically, to make this a real predominant sign. And therefore you could point to it and say, you know, here's a building that doesn't get a 15 square foot sign because under the new regulations, basically. And I'm doing this because eventually we're gonna have to go to town meeting, or someone's gonna go to town meeting and get the regulations changed. I have to go, someone's gonna have to go, probably me, to planning board to get them basically change the regulations as well. So I'd like to be able to point to some of these other buildings in town that basically has more flexibility under the new regulations. And so that's why I'm suggesting that 20 square feet might be the right regulation. Now, the other point, the other piece that I brought up to her was this is a window sign. And she has not got a permit for it yet. She should get a permit for it. And if she's gonna have, and it probably exceeds the 10%. But if she's gonna go for an oversized sign to begin with, she can just as easily go for an oversized sign for a typical window area as well. And that's really what she's got to deal with. And as far as size of this, you can go and measure it any time of the day or night, basically, because it's right there in the building. As far as the information on this, it's really lacking.
What's the
Yeah.
size of the temporary sign and how long has the temporary sign been up?
It's been up over a year. And it's not 6 square feet, which is allowed. I don't know, Jeff, what it is. If I was to look at, if this is, you can see if that's the spacing between this and that's 10 feet, then you can see this is inside of 10 feet. So maybe it's 8 feet across. It's oversized anyway from what's
To
allowed.
Paraphrase, we have a non-conforming temporary sign, non-conforming window sign. The documents here as proposed are incomplete and don't conform to the current code. But they, with some minor change, they might conform to what is a proposed future code. Didn't the applicant actually work as part of a local group to develop the more flexible signage code, or
Yeah.
at least participated in the development of it in some way?
For 2.5 years, she attended Mayo's sign group, basically, that were involved in rewriting or adding basically flexibility into the code. And quite frankly, she was one of the advocates, I think, and maybe some of the council members were advocates basically for streamlining the process so that you didn't have to go to the ZBA for everything,
Right.
like a projecting bracket sign or this, that, and the other thing. So, and having to spend the money with an attorney or whatever, but the complaint was that it took a long time. Well, the reality is the review of the signs didn't take a long time, but in
How
the
many
process.
How many meetings have we had? I think this is the third
Um,
for this committee.
At least I have had, if I go back to my file, I probably have had 2 years of emails and discussions with her. And, originally, I think that they weren't sure what they had for money, whether this location was going to be good enough.
I was
They've
wondering
doubled.
about the number of meetings. I don't want to get into,
Okay,
you know,
all right.
but I just, I'm ready to look at a design when it's proposed, when it, and presented and is complete. So,
Okay.
but that's not this design, right?
Um,
It's not complete. We don't know this, how it's lit.
No, we don't. She doesn't either. There is a light there, pre-existing. It wouldn't be something we want. So my point would have been today, if she attended, was to walk her through the process. Basically, she's made, in a way, great progress in 1.5 years from that napkin to this, but she's got a few more yards to go. And so my conversation with her today would be, this should be 20 square feet. And, you ought to file for this. And I'd like to see this sign a little more ornamental, basically, some sort of trim system around here and raised letters and that sort of stuff, something that makes it the sign as good as the business.
Right.
And
I don't think I would entertain a larger sign if it was applied flat vinyl letters. But I know at the beginning you said you thought that the building deserved or should have a larger sign. But I think that would, I'm not sure where that comes from, other than if the client is asking for a bigger sign, if the applicant's asking for a bigger sign and would like to go to the ZBA with our support for that, especially given the history of her involvement with the new signage bylaws that are being developed that allow some flexibility. If this wants to be a test case for that, I'd be all for it, but not as it stands. And I really don't want to discuss it if the applicant's not here again.
yeah, okay, all right, that's fine. So I guess we can't do anything more here, really, particularly since the applicant's not here for whatever reason.
Does her portion of the meeting take place if she's not here? I mean, do we need to vote and deny it?
No, because it's,
No representative here, right?
no, right, I don't think we can.
I wouldn't want to do that if,
It's in a way, I was hoping to turn it into more design discussion and issue discussion, basically, but I think we cannot, at this point, take a vote on it without the client here, without the discussion of the client and the presentation of the client. We don't have one.
right, yeah, I think you're right.
It's more of like, this is what's going, it's more of informative because to me, as I said in my email to her, basically, it's more of a follow-up to a year ago.
Well, in another year, maybe we'll have it resolved. What are the regulations regarding a temporary sign well past the temporary period?
Temporary signs, one, they have to be 6 square feet. 2, they're up for 90 days. They can get a 90-day extension after that through the building department. They have all the right in the world to put a temporary sign up for 90 days.
Right.
6 square feet, 90 days. You don't have to pull a permit or anything else, but to go for the second 90 days, they have to go to the building department.
And we're 180 days past the 90-day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So with that, I'm going to close the meeting because I don't think there's any use of going any further unless there's something else you guys want to bring up.
Nope.
All right. So, I've got for 64 Albion Street, I have to write a memo basically and hold it in my file for 14 days. For 478 Main Street, we don't have a client to present the project or discuss the project, so we'll just hold it in abeyance till she actually comes to us and asks us to move forward with whatever she submits. And so I'm going to close a meeting for the two of them. This is March 21st, 2022. It is 5:21.